You knew this day would come. You knew this was going to happen at some point. Today, we're doing a comparison between the 2C, the 2 closed, and the M1060c from Monoprice, Monolith. Interesting. We will definitely get to this. Why? Well, because if you want to get into the planar magnetic world, you have the choice between Hi-Fi Man, which has very inconsistent build quality, and their sound is, some people like it, some people don't like it. A lot of times I would say the Hi-Fi Man sound quality is not up to par to what those drivers could possibly do. And they're also expensive. Compared to the Monolith Monoprice M1060 closed, it is basically a knockoff of the Audeze 2 closed. And if you know anything about Monoprice versus Audeze, there is a little bit of animosity from Audeze towards Monoprice because they believe that Monoprice stole the technology for planar magnetic from Audeze's headphones, stole the design to a degree, and now are trying to compete with Audeze. That probably is true to an extent. I don't know the actual facts of how that happened, but those are the allegations. Build quality. It's night and day difference. The build of the 2 closed is metal and leather and metal. There is no plastic portion. Well, this. Oh, the only plastic portion is the yoke holder thing here, and that's it. Everything else on this headphone is, and maybe this is plastic, but it's really hard plastic. This is plastic, metal, maybe metal. Maybe it's metal that's rubberized. I don't know what this is, but it's hefty, it's durable, it is amazing to hold in your hand because you feel as if you're holding a very substantial headphone, and for the price they ask you to pay, yeah, you should definitely get that feeling. Compared to the 1060c, which is $275, $350, something like that, depends on eBay if you can find it for less than $350. Look, when the video started, you saw this headband thing go. This is what I have to deal with every day. When I put these headphones on, this is what happens. And it's really frustrating because this is the weakest portion of the headphone physically. The ear cup is wood and it looks great and it sounds, we'll get to the sound, but the ear cups themselves are fantastic. The leather here is very, very soft and supple and the padding is substantial. But everything else, besides the ear cup, everything else on this headphone needs a major rehaul. Because look, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want the ear cups swiveling all the way around, which is what happens often when I leave these headphones on my desk and I move them because I have to pick up something. The yokes will swivel the ear cups every which way, and that will cause entanglement, essentially. Furthermore, I'm not a fan of the headband design, which is this weird thing. Once it's on your head, you don't really have to worry about it. But I really dislike the fact that they give you a headband that is basically not padded at all. There's no padding here. It may as well have been filled with a little bit of air. So that's why I went to Amazon, spent $7, and got this foam padding that I twist tied to the top of this headband. And that increases the comfort exponentially. Other than that, there's not much difference physically, but this is a big issue. If you don't want to fiddle with your headphones, you don't want to worry about the yoke falling apart. The 1060 is not for you because this is very finicky. Let's just get to the review. Both headphones are connected to the Monoprice Monolith THX AAA, which is a great amplifier, by the way. Review in progress. With an AB switch, not an AV switch, an AB switch. And let's just get on with it. All right, got to situate this thing just perfectly. All right, let's start with mountains. I'm going to increase the volume to 18 decibels, minus 18 decibels. And you hear that rumbling. It's not particularly pronounced in the 1060s. I'm going to skip ahead to the middle of the song where it really vamps up with the organ. and increase the volume to minus 8.5. The sound is a little muted, not muted, muffled. You know, with this organ, it's supposed to be big and expansive and wonderful, but the problem is that it doesn't really come off that way. And I've heard this song so many times on so many various headphones, I know what it should sound like. So when the organ hits and all the instruments come in, there's not as much separation amongst all the instruments. It sounds a little muddled, and it's certainly muddy, dark sounding headphone, meaning there's no particular details that stand out. They're just kind of all jumbled in together. With respect to soundstage, there's sufficient soundstage, I would say. There's clearly left and right, front and back. But the enjoyment of this song really comes in the middle with all the instruments. And unfortunately, it sounds like the 1060c doesn't quite reproduce it properly. Now, when the organ, all the instruments come in, there's a good amount of reverberation in the ear cups, which is very pleasant. But short of that, I'm not particularly wowed by the reproduction of this song on the 1060. So let's go to the two closed. As far as comfort, I feel as if the two closed sits over or around my ears better than the M1060c. But I felt as if the M1060Cs had a slightly better sound isolation. Okay, here we go. Oops. Gotta switch the AB. That low rumble that's in this song, I think is recreated about the same in these two headphones. Now remember when I did the comparison between the 2C and the XC, I told you the XC had more emphasis on that rumble. It really came out. With comparison between the 2C and the 1060C, the rumble seems to be about the same. They're equal. Let's skip to the middle. When all the instruments come in about midway of this song, the 2C, the two closed, have better instrument separation, more air, definitely not muddy like the 1060C. The LCD-2s are more detailed, not substantially more detailed, not the difference between the two closed and the XC, but still enough for me to notice. Not dark sounding, because I believe that, in my opinion, I think that the 1060C is a much more darker sounding headphone. It's a little bit more muffled, a little more narrow, whereas the two closed on this song is wider and it sounds more expansive. Okay, so let's go to Angel, which has a lot of bass, and I have the 1060, no, I'm sorry, the two closed on. That rumble starts off within about a second and a half, 2 seconds into the song. A lot of air, depth, I can hear all the different electronic mumbo jumbo that's in this song. It's well recreated. So what I'm hearing is essentially a lot of soundstage, good, strong bass impact with emphasis. It's not muddy. There's good instrument separation for what instruments there are in this song. And it's very clean. Skip halfway. Vocal is fairly smooth, very accurate, clean, not grainy. And it seems to have a lot of room for the sound to hit your ears. Okay, now let's switch to the monoprice. Yeah, definitely a little bit better sound isolation in my opinion. Here we go. Ugh, I keep forgetting to change. Let me start again. That low rumble in this song is much more strong than it was in the Too Closed. And it's just really reverberating inside the ear cup. I mean, it's a little overwhelming because it's starting to overwhelm the rest of the drum and the bass in this. The bass impact, I would say, is as tight as it is on the Too Closed. The rumble is pleasant. I mean, I like it. I like the fact that I can actually feel it in this headphone versus the 2C, the Too Closed, but it's drowning out and overwhelming some of the other bass frequencies. Let me skip halfway to the vocal. Yeah, so with that drum strike is definitely more pronounced in the M1060s. I don't really hear much of a difference in the vocal in this song between the two headphones. They sound about the same to me. I would say that the 1060 is probably a little bit more intense, a little bit more in your face than the Too Closed. Where the Too Closed takes a kind of a laid back position to all of the reproduction. The 1060 on this song is a little bit more forward, it's more intense, it is more in your face, for better or worse. Okay, let me pause there. Okay, so I'm gonna cut and I'm gonna do something real quick. Now we are back. Nothing changed. I didn't change anything. All right, except for the fact that Charlie is now here. Hey, Chuck. All right, so as far as the two songs, what I've noticed is that in Mountains, because that type of song with the organ and the orchestral music, it requires air, it requires space for you to get the tonal experience. The Too Closed definitely provides that when compared to the M1060. In Angel, because it's such a bass-heavy song, if you want to hear all that bass, you want a darker sounding headphone. You want something that is going to elevate that bass frequency, and the 1060 does that. Whereas the Too Closed is much more laid back, much more smooth, rolls off that lower frequency sooner than the M1060 does. And the M1060 is more in your face than the Too Closed, sound-wise. Let's go to, which one am I on now? I'm on 2, so this is M1060. Let's go to drum solo. So what I'm hearing is that the drums are, again, more forward, more in your face, or really it feels like it's in your face. And there's a point in the song where the drummer just starts riffing, and I'm going to increase the volume to max and listen for that. Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. This song on the M1060 closed is fantastic. That drum hit, the impact, that sharp hit on the drum head is really well produced. It's very, very tight. Is it to the extent as the M1060, not M1060, but the LCD-XC? No, I wouldn't go that far. The XC is completely different. But because this headphone is so much more forward than the 2 closed, the drums are intense and in a good way. If that's what you want to hear that drum strike, it's definitely there. Now let's switch to the 2 closed. This time I remember to switch first. And let's start again. So the drum is pleasant in the 2 closed. The problem is that, and you know, I say it's a problem, it's not a problem. But the thing is, because this headphone, the 2 closed, has so much more airiness to it, the drum is not intense. It's not in your face. The sound and the frequency reverberates and transfers naturally throughout the air in a big room, essentially, is the effect that I'm getting. And now that he's starting to riff, let me pull up the volume. That laid-back approach that the 2 closed has is a taste thing. It's a taste preference thing. For this song, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to have very intense drum solo, or do you prefer to have something that's more laid back and relaxed and it's not in your face? If it's the latter, then the 2 closed do a great job. You listen to the song, there's no sharpness, there's no peaking, there's no, you know, headache-inducing bass impact. Whereas with the 1060, that drum hit is significantly, noticeably, materially more. And when you compare the 2, A and B, you can tell that the 1060 is a darker sounding headphone. It is much more kind of mid-bass focused, not so much sub-bass focused. And what I mean by sub-bass is that in Mountains, for example, that low rumble, I don't think that it wasn't as clean. Right? The low rumble in the M10, in the 2 closed was more clean, even though it was suppressed. It rolls off. But in Mountains and in Angels on the M1060, that bass is there and it's emphasized. In the same degree, it's emphasized for this drum solo part, song, where it's just in your face. It's very impactful. It would drown out any other instruments had there been other instruments, but because this is a drum solo, there are no other instruments. Let's do one more. Let's do New Light by Kazuki and I have the two closed on. So this is a very airy song. It's an electronic song that requires a lot of air and space. It's a meditation type song where you just sit there and you listen and you relax. And with the two closed, I get the sensation of that width. If you close my eyes, I can imagine standing out in a field with this song just playing all around me when I have the two closed on. Okay, now let's go to the 1060. Much more intense, much more in your face, not as relaxing as the two closed. Because that sound is just kind of being pushed to you, closing my eyes and trying to imagine that I'm in this open, expansive field is not helping, because this song is kind of being forced into my ears. And it's less airy and it's more narrow sounding, a little bit more muddy than the two closed. The detail is there, but it's just not really well presented, because there's not a whole lot of definition on the 1060. There's a lot more definition between the instruments because there's so much more room. The instruments and the decay and the frequencies can just come naturally towards you. But with the 1060 close, it feels as if it's being shoved towards you and everything is crowding into your ear canal. Imagine, for example, that you are in a building and there's an exit and everybody is trying to get out at the same time, and the theater is closing and everybody needs to leave, and they're all trying to push out this one door. That's the way it kind of feels like. It's just being shoved into my ear canal. It's not necessarily a bad experience, it's just a very different experience than the two closed. This song is supposed to be relaxing and melodic and sleep-inducing. I don't think I'd fall asleep listening to this song on higher volumes on the 1060. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good baseline amongst all the songs. I could do a whole lot more comparison, but I have kind of an idea of what these headphones are. The two closed are still that laid-back, airy sound, really relaxing. But the M1060 is a much more narrow, intense, and less clear sound. Now, if you just heard only this, only the 1060s, and you never had the opportunity to hear the two closed, what would you think? Oh, I would think that this is a really nice pair of headphones. The 1060 is really nice. The bass is there, the detail is there, the sound quality in general is very well presented. But if you give me another headphone like the two closed to compare with it, I would have to step back and say the two closed sounds airier, it sounds more relaxing, it sounds more detailed because of that room to play with in the air, that soundstage. And which one would I pick in that case? Which one do I pick in this case? Well, see, that's the problem. Because with the drum solo, I would probably pick the M1060 close because I want to feel that impact. That's why I have the XCs. That's why I have the TH900s. The two close doesn't really do that song any justice. What about Mountains? Well, I think I like the two close on the Mountains. What about Angel? I like I like Angel on too close, but I like that sub-bass reproduction on the M1060 better because I like that rumble and the ear cups moving. What about New Light? I tend to like the too close more on the New Light than I do the 1060 because it's more airy, it's more comforting. So do you see? Do you kind of get the idea of how these headphones respond to these various types of songs? They both have their own particular characteristics. They have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. It all depends on your particular preference. Now, if you have $300 in your pocket and you're wondering, gosh, should I keep saving and saving and saving and saving until I can get a too close? That's a question I cannot answer. But if you want to get into planar magnetics and good planar magnetics with a closed back, this is a great pair of headphones. You should definitely give the M1060 a try. But in comparing these two, there's no clear winner because it depends on your particular use and your particular sound preference. For me, I like the airiness. I would pick the too closed probably 7 times out of 10 over the M1060. But I would enjoy the M1060 all the times that I did wear it and use it. So that is my conclusion regarding these two headphones. They're both great headphones, but they both have very different styles, very different tonalities, very different characters. And once again, that is what makes this whole headphone addiction so addicting. I hope this has been of some help. If you want me to do some additional comparison, let me know. I will do that. But as far as it goes, I think that these are both phenomenal headphones, but very different headphones.